Morning.
All the best, Sumati.
Okay, very good morning, every personality here. I cordially invite you for this wonderful occasion. That is the public Viva Voce examination of Miss N. Sumati. She's defending her thesis title, Optimistic Perspectives Towards the Struggle in the Select Poems of Dylan Thomas, a study. And my name is Dr. Suresh, and I'm the supervisor for the candidate. I'm an associate professor here at the Wales University, Chennai. And we have our eminent personality, the chief guest, Dr. Rajakumari. So I'm so happy to welcome you, ma'am. Um, so let me just first introduce the chief guest. Dr. D. Rajakumari is an assistant professor of English, also an NSS program officer and a staff secretary at Chellamal Women's College, Chennai. She holds a doctoral degree, and her doctoral research was on William Faulkner, the author and man. And she is the PhD supervisor and guiding four research scholars at present. And she's also a research advisory committee member and external examiner for various institutions. She worked as a project associate. She worked as a project associate in UGC major project on study of the lexical and semantic correspondences between the European and the Dravidian family of languages and reconstruction of the etymologies of Dravidian Tamil loanwords in English at Presidency College, Chennai. She presented and published numerous research articles in international and national conferences and seminars. She had chaired the session in international and national conferences as well. She had been a resource person and a chief guest to various institutions for various academic scenarios. During the COVID-19 pandemic lockdown, she had addressed the present issue of America's systemic racism in an international webinar. Her passion in academics had earned her Best Professor Award from international academicians and researchers conclave and awards. Her dedication in social service turned her to become National Service Scheme Program Officer, and she participated in National Adventure Camp held at Chandigarh and received Best Program Organizer Award. She has been appointed as editorial board member of the State National Service Cell, Government of Tamil Nadu. Other than academics, she had appeared in numerous television channels as guest and participants, and also rendered her community service to various organizations. She is the trustee of Avayar Anbin Karangal, which is a registered organization. And even during this lockdown period, she had visited many places and provided food provisions representing her organization, which was telecasted in News 7 channel on 2nd January 2021. She had been invited as distinguished jury for the National Youth Festival state level competitions by the Youth Welfare and Sports Development Department, Tamil Nadu. Now, I can just keep on, talking about her great achievements, but then since it is an occasion, I would like to restrict it here in order to begin this scenario, the presentation of this PhD candidate. And ma'am, we're so happy with such accomplishments, and we are immensely, um, honored to have you here with us today, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. It's yours. You can. The screen is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your wonderful introduction, my dear
Welcome.
friend, Dr. Suresh.
Welcome.
Um, Very good morning to one and all present here. It's my privilege and honor of being amidst of respected professors, educators, and research scholars. Anyhow, first and foremost, I would like to thank the Wales University for appointing me as an external examiner. And also I thank my beloved friend, Dr. P. Suresh, for suggesting my name in his panel of experts. And I also thank my dearest friends, Dr. A. Ganeshan and Dr. M. Tanesh, who were the research advisory committee members for Ms. Sumati's doctoral research work. When I read the thesis, I was able to see the reflection of the relentless efforts on the part of the supervisor, doctoral committee members, and the research candidate. And I appreciate each and everyone who involved in bringing out this meticulous piece of research work fruitfully today before us. So, um, with this, I would like to state three basic steps usually followed in the conduct of Viva Voce examination. The first one is the candidate has to make a presentation in 15 to 20 minutes. And second, the candidate has to give satisfactory clarification to the queries raised by the examiners and the audience. That is, I mean, even the foreign examiners have raised some questions, so I'll be representing those. So she has to give some satisfactory clarifications to that. And third part is following the successful oral defense, I recommend the candidate to be awarded Doctor of Philosophy. So with this message, now I call upon Ms. Sumati to make a presentation.
Thank you, ma'am. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, sir. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, ma'am.
I seek the blessings of God Almighty and my Father in heaven, and to bless me today in this PhD Viva Voice. And I'm here much privileged to present it today. After a long time, the much awaited event today has happened, and my topic of research is optimistic perspectives towards the struggles in the select poems of Dylan Thomas study. And why I chose this as a theme, as a part of my research, is because um, struggle is universal. It appeals to every man in his life. It happens in every man's life, and I would like to relate his poems, Dylan Thomas poems, to make a universal appeal for the whole world to realize the struggles and how to overcome those struggles in an optimistic way. And I have divided my chapters into five. Chapter one is introduction, chapter two is review of literature, and chapter three is optimistic perspective towards the struggles in life. And chapter four is struggles in old age and death, and solace in regeneration. And in the introduction part, I have given a brief introduction on Dylan Thomas uh, as a poet, as how he has been influenced by Romanticism and the metaphysical ideology of John Donne, other metaphysical poets, and how he can be regarded as a surrealistic poet, and even war the war has a deep impact in his poems, and I have brought out those also in the introduction part. And the conversational rhythms and vocabulary and the symbolism, imagery, and other techniques, poetic techniques used by Dylan Thomas. To I want to bring out all those things. I have brought out all these things in my research. And the main themes that he has dealt in the introduction part, I have also recalled the main themes that he has dealt in his poems, which are very much relevant to life, religion, life, nature, death, sex, and mysticism, and mysticism in sex, and how religious elements have brought in a lot of optimistic perspectives in his poems. And I have even recalled some of the sources of images and the kinds of images that he has used, like nature, religious images, and sexual images, and images of death and decay, and how these images can be read in an optimistic terms. And I have even quoted lines and examples from the text. And even how symbolism, the personal symbols and the religious symbols, especially the biblical symbols, how it has a great impact in bringing optimism, a vein of optimism in his poetry. And the complexity of symbolism is, we all know that the symbols are complex, and I have even applied the Freudian theory and Freud's theory, as well as I have brought in how the metaphysical imagery and the other things, the techniques used by metaphysical poets, and those things have a great and deep impact in Dylan Thomas. And as so many people have research in metaphysical imagery and Freudian principles and other things, I want to, the researcher, especially me, I want to touch on the important theme, that is the optimism in Dylan Thomas poetry. And there are so many people who have researched on Dylan Thomas, and all those people have touched on the modernism in Dylan Thomas poetry, vein of romanticism, and one researcher has even done on Dylan Thomas as a neo-romantic poet, and even metaphysical imagery, influence of Freud, influence of metaphysical ideas. All these have been done as research by other research scholars from different universities worldwide. And I would strongly say that my research is quite different from others' research, because I have handled more than 40 poems, and more than 60 poems I have made crisscross references here and there to make my research more effective in comparing with these poems. And I have mentioned some of the collections of the work, like 18 poems, 25 poems, and Map of Love and Death and Entrances, and Country Sleep, and the other poems. I've given the list of collections. And my objectives of the research are, I uh, to analyze the struggles in the process of life, to find the elements of optimism, to examine the techniques and strategies to face the struggles, to overcome those struggles, exhibiting strong willpower, to analyze the power of nature and time in man's life, to establish connection between man and nature from womb to tomb and tomb to womb. And in this objective, I have brought in eco-critical theory in some of the poems. And my research inquiries are, how do uh, how do struggles make a man more mature? How does time play a vital role in man's life? How does nature play an inevitable role in man's life? How does religion spread the power of positivity? How does man find his connection with nature? How does death lead to regeneration? How does man attain eternity in the phase of regeneration? How does metaphysical imagery bring out metaphysical ideas in Dylan Thomas poetry? How does man reconcile with nature, and how do images and symbols and other poetic technique contribute to the theme of the research? And the theories which I have applied here, I have made a mention here. I have applied Dr. Sigmund Freud's dual instinct theory, that is Eros and Thanatos, instinct for life and instinct for death, and eco-critical theory, connection between man and nature as a part of, as an inevitable force or as an inevitable part in man's life, and nature's role in man's life and death. And for review of literature, I have referred books and various books and theses and letters, journals, recordings, and reviews and other sources, etc. And chapter 3 deals with the struggle and birth struggles, uh, birth and struggles in the journey of life, and adolescent urges and struggles of storm, and struggles for man, and struggles for love and sex and fulfillment through procreation, and power of positivity from life, and influence of religious elements. So in this context, I have brought in birth and death as a part of even struggle. We always consider birth as a part of natural thing, but even in that natural process, man has undergone a lot of struggles in his life, and even adolescent urges, and how man struggles in adolescent urges, and it is a kind of storm. And how does a man struggle for love and sex, and how does he find fulfillment through procreation? And the religion always stands as a power of positivity, and it symbolizes the positive elements in the poems. So, under birth and struggles in the journey of life, I have mentioned here. I dream my Genesis, and when once the twilight locks no longer, vision and prayer, the process in the weather of art, and before I knocked. Here in these poems, you can find that the birth even becomes the struggle. The Genesis, the power of Genesis. Genesis talks about the book of Genesis, dream of birth. Dream comes as a birth comes as a dream for a man, for a child, and the birth and death can be as considered as a liberation from the struggle. So birth is a liberation from the womb, and the death as a liberation from life. And so birth is also a struggle, and life is also a struggle, and growth is also, so everything is considered to be a struggle. And a man faces struggle at every point of time. And Vision and Prayer is a typographical poem where Dylan Thomas talks about how a child is born and how it struggles to come out of the womb. There is symbolism of hourglass and the diamond, the shape of the diamond, and the poem itself is in the shape of hourglass, which tells the eternity of life. The life continues after death, and death continues after life. So, eternity of life and death, the cyclic pattern in the hourglass represents the life and death struggles, and the process in the weather of heart, where the man and nature connectivity can be found, and the creation and fertility, and there is a hope for creation. So whenever there is an infertility, the fertility is um, actually planned by nature. Nature plans everything. So already, as I mentioned, that nature has an inevitable role in man's life. Before I knocked, an aging process, that it shows the infertile womb, how the infertile womb is there, and how creative energy uh, is uh, is actually out through the womb. So infertile wombs uh, gets a creative energy, the power to reproduce. And so, due to time constraint, I'm just quickly just telling all the things. And so, and chapter 3, even birth and struggles in the journey of life, there the growth, the man actually, this Fernhill is actually a poem. Fernhill is a semi-autobiographical poem where the Garden of Eden, there is a mention of Garden of Eden, and he feels very nostalgic that he's far away from his place. Actually, Dylan Thomas was brought up in Wales, and later he shifted his home to Llangollen, and there he finds that he misses his own town, hometown, and there is a kind of spiritual awakening from slumber for a wanderer. It's like a wanderer gypsy experience, and the poet feels very nostalgic, and there is a kind of awakening, there is a kind of realization in the poet or the persona there, that from he is transformed from innocence to experience when he moves away from his own place to a new place. And their nature makes a man get matured, and he comes to know how he has to transform himself to the experience level. And the poem in October, where the rural landscape and urban landscape are contrasted, and there even there is a longing for the rural landscape. And here in both the poems, art becomes the driving force for the poet to just to escape from the suffering that he has undergone because of missing his own hometown. And under this eco-critical reading, I have brought in This Bread I Break, Altawise by Our Light, and The Force That Green Fuse Drives the Flower. And this two usual poems that are prescribed in universities, in especially in Tamil Nadu. I find that the force that green fuse drives the flower, and as well as the do not go gentle into that good night. But there are so many poems where Dylan Thomas has brought in a lot of ideas that are necessary for a man to read. and struggle in man and nature for birth and growth and death. All this, the struggle, the force, the green fuse that drives the flower. The title, the force is actually the destructive as well as creative force. Both are there. So eros and thanatos, both force are there. Destructive force as well as creative force. So through creative force, man is able to reproduce, and nature is also able to reproduce and regenerate. But through destructive force, again, man has to just die to regenerate or to reborn again. And that kind of cyclic energy is there in nature and man and time. And this bread I break, that creates a tension between man and nature, where man is able to break the rules of nature, and he makes use of nature for his own materialistic needs. And how nature cares for man, and man doesn't care more about nature. Here I find a lot of when I try to analyze in depth, I find a lot of comparisons which I can even draw to Khalil Gibran's The Earth poem, where he even talks about the same thing. And Otherwise, by Our Light is a collection of 10 sonnets where the voyage of a sailor is compared to the voyage of a man in his own life. The voyage is compared to his own life. And in that process of voyage, what are all the sailor faces? What are all the struggles that sailor faces at each stage of his voyage is just compared to the journey of life and the struggles in man. And chapter 3, and in chapter 3, adolescent urges and struggles of storm. I see the boys of summer. That in that there is a conversation between the boys of summer and the old man of winter, and summer is for creation and flowering, and winter is for death, and especially sexual death in man. And that there, Dylan Thomas has brought in creation versus destruction. And usually these poems, adolescent urges, the poems that deal with adolescent urges, I find that there are a lot of things against Puritan idea. That is, Puritan mind refuses to recognize the sexual or adolescent urges in man. And as even Dylan Thomas was under Puritan society, he feels, or he felt that these urges are not addressed by the society or a man. There is a fear, or there is an anxiety or fear to express adolescent urges in man, and for that purpose he has written this poem. And I find that the biological struggle in man in my hero bears his nerves, and there the man is able to fulfill his biological struggle through masturbation, and that is a kind of flesh out of creative energy in man. And the force that green fuse drives the flower, there is an abundance of creative energy in man during his adolescence. The force that drives the green fuse, that drives the flower, the same force is there in man that drives the man to be born again. So man nature connectivity is more in these poems. And in struggle for love and sex and fulfillment through procreation, there I've brought in love and asylum. If I were tickled by the rub of love, and when like a running grave, our eunuch dream, all and all the dry world's liver in my craft or sullen art on a marriage of on the marriage of virgin. These poems talk about how a man struggles for love and sex, and he finds a fulfillment through procreation. Love and asylum, and each poem, even if I were tickled by the rub of love, all this talks about the sensual love that uh, man struggles in due to his adolescent age. And so so here, even wear once the water of your face, especially when the October wind, paper and sticks, a winter's tale, and in white giant sky, and death shall have no domain. So these poems talks about the love that is true. Papers and sticks example for papers and stick instance. If you take the love is actually whether it is a celluloid love or the true or real love, both are contrasted, and the person is able to understand what is real love. And so and especially when I deal with these poems, I could find that man's point of view of these themes are entirely different from how a woman writes. And death shall have no dominion, and those poems, death shall have no dominion, where the lovers die but love shall not die. That is what that is an optimistic perspective that Dylan Thomas has concluded. And after the funeral, there he talks about love for aunt, and do not go gentle into that good night. There he talks about love for his father, and these are the poems that I have even brought in under death. And these poems talk about the memories, especially the memories last forever, even the person doesn't. And the spiritualizing the love is analyzed through you find there is a kind of spiritual love through in this poem. And the power of positivity from Christ and the influence of religious elements are dominant in Alan Thomas poetry. Especially, I have quoted certain poems like "After the Funeral," "Altar Wise" by Love Light, and "Light Breaks Where No Sun Shines," "Vision in Prayer," and poem in October, "A Refusal to Mourn the Death of the Child." There in "Light Breaks Where No Sunshine," poet talks about the light breaks. The title itself is very suggestive of optimism. No, there is no sunshine, but light breaks through where there is no sunshine. And vision and prayer even talks about the birth, how positivity is brought through birth, and the spirituality is brought in this poem. I have brought in a Freudian influence in Dylan Thomas poetry under this title. I've brought in Fernhill, 24 years, and I see the boys of summer. I dream my Genesis if I were tickled by the rub of love. I make this wearing absence and love in asylum into her lying down head and on a wedding anniversary. These poems in these poems, I have analyzed the Freudian influence that through dream vision, the person is able to get the vision of the birth, vision of the struggle that man is undergoing. Either it can be love, or it can be birth, or it can be death. And this vision, how the person gets, and what is the implication of these vision, and how he finds an optimistic thought when he gets up. And those things I have analyzed in these poems. And in chapter 4, struggles in old age and death, and solace in regeneration, in that the fear of death and struggle for eternal life, and the struggle in war, death, and elegy, and hope in perpetual life. All these themes I can find. And there is a solace in regeneration, and the old age and deaths are natural, but the death in war is not a natural death. The first part, fear of death and struggle for eternal life, there I've talked about the old age, how man struggles in old age when he's going to die. And So what kind of eternal life that he is going to undergo after this death? That is the optimistic perspective that Dylan Thomas has brought in. And the struggle in war is not a natural thing. And as we all know, Dylan Thomas lived in the time where he was greatly influenced by World War II, and the war and the fire rights have a deep impact in some of his poems. And the elegy that he has written to a child, even, or the child which is not even born, those things are there in this poem. And hope in perpetual life, that is, we always hope that when there is a death, there is a life again after death. So he believes in that. And in under this thing, I can divide these things into three types. That is, one, the death. There is a fear of death in man. And the another thing is, there is a fear of death in man. And another thing is, uh, there are certain poems where he refuses to accept death. He says that I'll not mourn for death. So there is no mourning for death. So one type is fear for death, another one is refuse to accept death, and another group of poems that submits to another type of poems that submit to the death and hope for eternal life. And there, okay, the poems, I'm sorry, the poems which talk about the fear of death, or how shall my animal the foes that green fuse, and the death shall have no dominion. And their death shall have no dominion talks about the rebellious way, how man tries to defend that death can never have a dominance in a man's life. And refusal to mourn also talks about the rebellious way, how man refuses to mourn the death and do not go gentle into that good night, even as a semi-autobiographical poem where he infuses a ray of optimism in his father's life when he was about to die. And 24 years and poem on his birthday, uh, refusal to mourn, and ceremony after a fire rite, and after the funeral, before I knocked, all these poems uh, accepts death as a part of life, accepts death as a part of natural process, that is subjected to, any man who's born is subjected to die. So death and decay is a part of natural process, and one has to accept to be reborn again. Sorry. And struggle in war and death, and elegy and hope in perpetual life. There, London at the time of war and the fire rights, he has beautifully brought out in the war poems. And the fire rights causes victims to die, made the victims to die, irrespective of their age, whether, so in one poem the child is born, another poem the child before it's born dies in the womb of the mother, and how there is a perpetual life after death. And the refusal to mourn, that even is suggestive that there is a life after death. So Dylan Thomas, the person doesn't want to mourn because death, death in war or fire ride is to be glorified and not to be mourned. And by mourning, he says that glorification will not be there if I mourn. And the holy spring, and after the funeral, after the funeral, talks about the hypocrisy of the Puritan society in the process of mourning, and how how his aunt died, and how he is able to recall all the memories of his aunt. So that brings that nostalgic feeling, brings in uh, the optimism in the man's life. And among those killed in the dawn ride, that as well as the ceremony after a fire rite, talks about the fire rite that happened in England even in the middle of the night, when people, Holy Spring especially talks about uh, persona will be sleeping, and at that time there will be a fire rite and so many people die. And morning you can see that so many people are killed in the fire rite, nightly fire rite. And there how people suffered, and there is a hope, there is a dawn after every dusk. So as every research is concluded, so these themes of life, death, and life, death, and growth in man is always connected with nature, and we can find a connection between nature and man in the process of life and death. It's always the life and death is a cyclic process, and there is a hope for resurrection. There is a hope for regeneration in man. And as every research has its own limitations, I find that I have touched on only the optimistic perspective in the poems of Dylan Thomas, in some of the poems of Dylan Thomas. But future, a researcher can further deal with the poems in relation to the other poets like Emily Dickinson and John Donne and other metaphysical poets. And even the researcher can do research comparatively with other metaphysical poets, as well as uh, uh, poets like confessional poets like Kamala Das and Sylvia Plath. And so my research has its own limitations, and I agree that I have focused only on the optimistic perspectives, and how how these optimistic perspectives appeal universally to every man, uh, irrespective of his caste, creed, or community, or the society, or the country that he is rooted. And thank you for this. Thank you for patiently listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the wonderful presentation, ma'am. Thank you. Ma'am,
Yeah.
yours.
Ms. Sumati,
Thanks, ma'am.
Ms. Sumati, are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, hope you are very relaxed. Okay, you made a good presentation. Actually, the diction was fluid, as well as the exposition of thought and expression was congruent, agreeable. And before posing the questions of the foreign and Indian examiner, I would like to present my observation. Actually, your presentation and your thesis work exhibits that the research is definitely a product of few years of careful deliberation and painstaking compilation of ideas. And the objective of the research work is clearly defined, and you elucidated how the power of optimism presents in the life and works of Dylan Thomas, and also the quotations supporting the arguments forth in the research have been aptly chosen, and it served the purpose to the fullest. So I'm very much happy with your work and your presentation. But however, there are certain oversights that need to be pointed. Even the reports of the internal and external examiners state the same. So I just bring for that. I would like to point out the remarks of the foreign examiner now. Here the examiner stated that there is number of minor observations that he feel obligated to make, and I also feel the same. Because there are several quotations throughout the work with no citations. For instance, on once again, yeah, on the pages 18 to 19. For example, in the excerpt which support your argument, which is a very vital quotation. So it has to be like, it should be followed by citations or substantiations to enhance the study's credibility. But you drastically failed in it. And actually, the external examiner, he quoted the entire para and just gave some suggestions towards it. Also, a thorough editing is required to clear up typographical errors, grammatical glitches, and inconsistencies in spacing, use of quotations, etc. So even on page 72, he said that there are certain mistakes like space, comma, parenthesis, all such minor, though it is minor, but it is of like PhD dissertation. You should really be very much careful while doing it. But anyhow, it's fine. But both the examiners as well as myself, we felt that that MLA style sheet for the documentation of the thesis should have been followed from pagination to the bibliography. That's it. And now I pose a couple of questions raised by the foreign examiner. So the first question is, yeah. The first question is, what is the relevance of Dylan Thomas in post-colonial society as in the Indian subcontinent? Or is it? Can you hear
Yes.
me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Shall I
Thank
repeat
you.
the question?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you for that question, ma'am. It's very much relevant to our Indian subcontinent. The question is very much relevant to the Indian subcontinent. As I have dealt the theme of optimistic perspectives in Dylan Thomas poetry, I haven't touched on post-colonial theory or the post-colonial aspects. Especially, we can find these post-colonial aspects in short stories of Dylan Thomas and not in the poetry. As far as my research is concerned, I have checked those things, as well as even Dylan Thomas, he belongs to Welsh tradition. He was brought up in Wales, actually. He was born in Wales, Swansea, but later he shifted to Langurney, and later he stayed at Newquay and different places. And he wants to be recognized as an English poet and not as a Welsh poet. So personally, I find Wales even is a part of uh, was once a colony of England. Wales was once a colony of England, and uh, yes, of course, Dylan Thomas was personally affected because of the colonialism, even between Welsh and English writers in English society, and so. He wanted himself to be recognized as English writer. He even calls his name as Dylan and not Dylan. So when we say Dylan, it becomes dialectically it becomes Welsh, and when we say Dylan, it becomes dialectically English. And so he says that he is much influenced by English and not by Welsh. And I hope I have answered to some extent.
Okay. So, and now I just come with the Indian examiner's question. and even it is of my observation. Nowadays, in the modern literary research, is completely based on different literary theories, and actually this will help us to just understand better of the various aspects of the literary works. And actually I thought of asking you that why you have not chosen the optimism, like psychological optimism theory. But in your presentation, I happened to find that you said that Dr. Sigmund Freud instinct theory had been used and eco-critical theory has been used. Even when I was reading the dissertation, I happened to find, but it is not much on your part. So I just want you to incorporate. Why didn't you not? Why did you not incorporate any suitable theoretical perspective other than Freudian theory and eco-critical theory?
Yes, ma'am. Actually, theories are just to support as a any research should have a theory as a foundation or the basis to support our ideas. And I have not taken a particular theory as a major subject because I find that eco-critical reading of Dylan Thomas is already done by another research from Finland, University of Tampere, and another research writer from another country has even touched on the other theory, like Freudian theory especially. And even the other writers even have talked on modernity in the themes and techniques in the poetry of Dylan Thomas, that is dealt by uh, Mr. Syar Mir from Maulana Azad National Urdu University. He has dealt on the modernity as a part of theme, and that even comes as a modernism theory. And he has entirely devoted his thesis on that theory. And another researcher has even brought in attributes of Welshness in Dylan Thomas short stories. There he has brought in all the short stories and the essential Welshness in short stories that can be associated with Orientalism by Edward Said. And he has analyzed that part of the theory completely. And so I have brought in only Freud's theory and eco-critical theory because those theory is actually very close to man and nature connectivity, and I'm able to connect man and nature through these theories, so I have applied these theories.
Okay, very good, Sumati. Now the floor is open for discussion. The audience can ask their questions and make their suggestions, for which the candidate will provide explanation.
Sure.
In the chat box, there is a professor from Periyar University. His name is Dr. N. Ramesh. He has posted a question. What approach you followed in your thesis? That's the question he has asked. What approach you followed in your thesis?
The approach, the technical approach, if you mean the theory, which I have applied as eco-critical reading and the Freud's theory. Other than that, if you take approach, if it is optimistic perspectives, there is a ray of hope in all hapless situations, and struggle is universal and common to man, and the themes are universally appealing to all writers and to all the readers worldwide. So this my thesis can be read by anyone in any part of the world and can connect his struggle in his life, and he can find optimism in his own life through reading my thesis.
Okay, thank you. I don't know whether he listened to it, and though the question was not specifically asked, I hope the candidate has answered from two perspectives, I believe. Probably if he's listening, he would have gotten his answer. Is there any other questions, please? You may either ask it directly, or you may just put it in the chat box. Ma'am, please go ahead.
Good morning, sir. Good
Yeah.
morning, ma'am. I am Shuchish Mehta and I have completed my PhD in English from Wales University under the guidance of Dr. Suresh sir. So I do not have any questions, Shumati. I just want to appreciate you. I seriously, highly appreciate you for choosing the poems of Dylan Thomas. And I have got to know several things which were unknown to me. So thank you so much for choosing this topic and presenting the presentation to us. So I congratulate you and I wish you all the very best for your future. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Thank you,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm
Ah,
Shanmugaraj. Let me let me introduce myself to you. Hello, am I
yes, sir.
audible?
Yeah, we
Yes,
can hear you, sir.
Yes, sir, we
Yes,
can hear you.
I'm Dr.
Yes, sir.
Shanmugaraj, visiting faculty English, School of Marine Management, Indian Maritime University, ECR.
yes, sir.
Sumati Narayan's presentation was really superb. She has taken much pains to present her ideas in a coherent way. With regard to Dylan Thomas, he suffered from three major problems: pneumonia, adversity, and alcoholism. These were the three factors that prompted him to write poetry. Of course, writing poetry is an escape for his sufferings. From the reality of suffering, he found asylum or a refuge in alcoholism, and thereby he lost his life very in the early age itself. Okay, he lived not more than 40 years. But my question is so simple: as a school dropout, how could you write such philosophical poems connected with nature? That's a simple question. And of course, he has written so many poems, and you have chosen for your research work 40 poems. It's a good job, and you have taken much pains to present your views, a research view. That was really nice. But with regard to Dylan Thomas, I have a few more doubts. Who were
Yes,
the influences on Dylan Thomas for writing poetry, and who were the influenced poets by reading Dylan Thomas poems? This,
sure,
this
sir.
is my first question.
Okay, sir. Let me thank you for the question, sir. Let me answer the first question, sir. As a child, Dylan Thomas' father was a school teacher, and he was asking or he was making Dylan Thomas read Shakespeare at very early age, and he was greatly influenced by Freud after reading Freud's interpretation of dreams, and so those were the writers. At his very early age, he was influenced much, and the other thing is. Yeah, he accepted that he was greatly influenced by Shakespeare, but he refused in an interview to accept that he was not influenced by Freud, and he doesn't want to, or he doesn't want to analyze his poems under Freudian influence. But I have done it against him, and we can find that there is an influence of John Donne and G.M. Hopkins uh, and the other writers, George Herbert, especially
Herbert.
George Herbert's Easter Wings is a typographical poem like Vision and Prayer by Dylan Thomas. Uh, we can compare both, and even I have mentioned in my thesis that I have compared these two poems, and I have made a statement that he was greatly influenced by George Herbert, and he has brought in metaphysical ideas in that poem.
Yes, well said, well said. Of course, the Freudian conflict of Eros and Thanatos dominate in his poems. At the same time, he is invariably influenced by the metaphysical poets like George Herbert and John Donne. But he has done his best. Dylan Thomas is really very much English, not a Welsh writer. But what message has he given us for, I mean, what is his contemporary relevance? That's the last question. Let me ask you. In what way Dylan Thomas is relevant to our modern times? Because he is nearly a 100-year-old poet. And in what way is he relevant? You have applied eco-criticism and also Freudian psychoanalytical theory in your research. That's a good job. You have done your best. Your presentation is nice and superb. I congratulate you, first of all. And my question is, in what way Dylan Thomas is relevant to our modern readers?
Yes, sir. Struggle in man, or struggle in life faced by man, is universal. It doesn't stop with particular age. Each time man struggles at different way, and life struggle is there, uh, right from the man, that is from Adam and Eve, till the world exists. So this is a universal theme that, as I mentioned in the conclusion part, the topic is very much relevant for any man in any society, whether he's modern or whether he's rural. If he reads this topic, if he reads this thesis, he can find relevant things for his own life.
Very good. Well said. Well said. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Suresh. I personally thank you for the opportunity to join in the Viva. And I thank the
Thank
external examiner. She has really presented or asked the wonderful questions, and she has done her part well. I congratulate Sumati and also Dr. Suresh and the external examiner, Rajkumari Madam. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for honoring us with your wonderful question. Thank
Is
you.
there any other questions from the participant side?
No more question. Thank you.
And I also see another research scholar, that's Miss Jamuna. Um, she's a research scholar, PhD scholar from Government Arts College, Kangayan, Tirupur district. She would like to get some clarification. This is how she has actually typed in here. The research scholar in her reply mentioned that modernism theory. Is it modernism theory or modernist theory? That's what she has asked. Probably if you can go to the chat box, you can find it. What do you would like to say, Ms. Sumit?
Yes.
I hope you could read
Thank you
that.
for the question, sir. And modernist theory is actually related to uh, life and literature. Modernism, if we take, it can be applied to uh, anything in the society, even culture and other things, language, culture, and the technical advancements, everything.
Okay, I hope Ms. Jamuna will be satisfied with the answer. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any other question from the audience side? Or
Hello,
shall I
ma'am.
continue?
This is
Yeah.
yes, ma'am. This is Gomati from Ishara Ministry. How are you, ma'am?
I am fine, Sumati.
Yes,
Komati.
yes, ma'am. Actually, ma'am, I have a question to Sumati.
Yes.
Ma'am, yeah. Could you tell me that only that optimistic view is there in Dylan Thomas, or else the pessimistic view also is there in Dylan Thomas poetry?
Yes, actually, initially, when we read at the surface level, we can find only the pessimistic view, but
Okay.
analyzing in depth as a part of my research, I find optimistic.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Actually, could you tell me that which one is dominated in the poetry of Dylan Thomas? The optimistic view, right? Yeah,
Yes,
mostly.
yes,
Okay. Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much.
thank you.
Yeah.
Hello, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
It's Rajakumari, ma'am. How are you?
Yeah, I'm
I'm,
fine.
I'm Dr. Suganta from Vistas. Like, I do
Okay.
not have any questions, but then I want to appreciate Sumati. She
Okay.
has done a sustained and a meticulous work. She's been very careful to give every detail. So I heartily appreciate Sumati and also Dr. Suresh for his guidance. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
I think we have come to an end of this Viva Voce examination. I hope there is no questions from audience side. Okay, then I proceed. Well done, Ms. Sumati. Your critical sense and analytical ability is really appreciable. Though the research needs a necessary modification pertaining to the quality of the research, especially the methodology, like you didn't follow the MLA style sheet. But a thesis, it constitutes a significant contribution to the knowledge and understanding of the field concerned. So, and also your oral defense was satisfactory. So I recommend the Wales University to award the Doctor of Philosophy to Miss Sumati. I also declare that from now on, Miss Sumati becomes Dr. Sumati. And I thank each one of you for your patience and cooperation. Now the virtual mic is over to Dr. Sumati.
Congratulations to Dr. Sumati Narayanan. Thank you. I'm so proud of you, and just want to highlight she's been with her research process for a very long time, and even though we expected it at a pretty early stage, but it took a little longer, not a little longer, a lot more than what we expected. So I appreciate her for her patience. She's been waiting for a very long time. I really appreciate that. So thank you, ma'am. I hope at last, for all your hard work and patience, now you got the fruit. So all the very best for your life in Korea. Thank you. Now you may proceed to the vote of thanks, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. I take immense pleasure in yes, ma'am.
Yes.
I take immense pleasure in expressing my sincere thanks and indebtedness to Dr. Ishari K. Ganesh, founder, chancellor, Dr. A. Jyoti Murugan, vice president, and Dr. P. Swaminathan, vice chancellor, and Dr. A.R. Veeramani, registrar, and Dr. Venkatraman, controller of examination, Wales Institute of Science, Technology and Advanced Studies, VSTAS, Chennai, for their valuable support by providing facilities to complete my research work. And I express my heartfelt gratitude and sincere thanks to my research supervisor, Dr. P. Suresh, Associate Professor, Department of English, Wales Institute of Science, Technology and Advanced Studies, Chennai, for his valuable guidance, scholarly inputs, and consistent encouragement that I received throughout the research work. His expertise in research is unflinching, and his courage and conviction has always inspired me to continue my research whenever I had a dilemma in my mind. And I greatly thank my doctoral committee members, Dr. A. Ganeshan, Assistant Professor, Department of English, RKM Vivekananda College, and Dr. U. Tanesh, Associate Professor, Dr. RKM Vivekananda College, Chennai, for their valuable support and suggestions to extend my research work. I extend my sincere thanks to Dr. Venkatraman, Professor and Head, Department of English, Wales Institute of Science, Technology and Advanced Studies, Chennai, for his kind and constant support and guidance. I would like to thank all the faculty members of the Department of English for their support and encouragement. I express my profound thanks to Dr. S. Satish Kumar, Research Dean, and Mrs. R. Nageshwari, Senior Assistant, and Mrs. S. Madhumita and Ms. S. Sandhya, Junior Assistants, Research Department, and all teaching and non-teaching staffs of Wales Institute of Science, Technology and Advanced Studies for their valuable support throughout my research. I thank all my staff from Fatima College, Madurai, who inculcated interest in me to pursue my research work. The seeds which they sow during my postgraduate program has always inspired me to continue my research work. And I also extend my sincere thanks to Mr. Parivendan for his support in proofreading my thesis. And I would like to extend my sincere thanks to co-research scholars, Dr. J. Revati, Dr. R. Prigya, and Dr. Suchismita Bhattacharya, Dr. Angelin, and Ms. Anuradha, and Dr. Suman Rajesh for their valuable support. And I'm glad to express my sincere and heartfelt thanks to the librarian of Wales University, British Council Library, and Anna Kennedy Library. And I personally thank my brother, Mr. Richard, for his guidance that he led us to the Skillet Library, American College, Madurai. And I profoundly thank all my family members as well as my friends who have always motivated me, encouraged me throughout my research work. Even when I was waiting for the past 2 years patiently, my friends have motivated me that they were behind me as a moral support. And I thank all of them. And above all, I thank God Almighty to have me here this day to present my research work in front of all the delegates. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Congratulations, Dr. Sumati.
Thank you, ma'am.
Congratulations, Dr. Sumati.
Thank you, ma'am.
Congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations,
Thank
Dr.
you, ma'am.
Sumati and Suresh sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Suresh,
I hope that is the end. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
okay. Just go ahead.
No, I was going to say that. So I think that is over. I may just stop the recording. Yeah, you may go ahead, ma'am. Thank
Yeah,
you. Is it
I can
related
leave.
to?
I can leave now,
Is
right?
it related
No,
to?
thank you for the opportunity given.
Yes. Thank you. Thank
Okay,
you.
bro.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I really thank everyone for your presence here. Thank you.